I've asked you on the show in order to explain what is it you do? Do you do advertising? Is it a mailing list? Just you know, it's an open-ended interview, really. I have a lot of questions, but I want to turn you loose on the idea first of all. So if you would talk about what you write, what you do to promote and stuff like that.
Okay, sure. Well, as Steve said, I'm Gail Z Martin, and I'm also Morgan Bryce. As Gail Z Martin, I write epic fantasy, urban fantasy, steampunk, near future, post-apocalyptic, and more. As Morgan Bryce, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. And the thing that ties all that together is I love things that go bump in the night, ghoulies, ghosties, long-legged beasties, vampires, werewolves, you know, regardless of which side of which name I'm using, those are the commonalities. So it really isn't that wide a spread as you might think between the two. I started out traditionally published. And of course, you know, the expectation is that when you're writing for a major publisher, and I was a top London publisher, top New York publisher, that they handle all those other things. All you have to do is sit back and write the book and let them handle it. Maybe at some point in history that was true, and maybe for the very top of their lists, that is still true. But for everybody else, whether you're a starting writer or are a mid-list writer, somebody who can be expected to write good books that sell, that come out on a regular basis, but that may not be the super multi-million copy bestseller, you're going to have to do most of that lifting yourself, regardless of whether you're self-published or whether you're with a small press or whether you're with a huge publisher. And I knew I wanted to be a writer when I was 14. And I decided that I wanted to structure everything I could about my life to make that succeed. So my college undergraduate major was medieval history because I knew I wanted to write epic fantasy and sword and sorcery. And I stumbled into doing a minor in computer systems and computer science and programming just because it intrigued me and I found it was interesting.
Okay.
Then I did an MBA in marketing so that I could, at some point when I had these books, know how to market them. And I did a second major in computer systems, which at the time everybody told me was silly because we all knew that marketing and computers had nothing to do with each other. This was a while ago. But the biggest help that gave me was that I wasn't afraid of computers or going online or getting on social media or poking around the back end of things like how to do Amazon ads, because I wasn't afraid of the technology. And that has been a huge boon, even though my programming days are long behind me. So I think the biggest thing to understand when you're writing is that other authors are not your competition. Your biggest threat is the clutter that is out there, the sheer volume of choices that people have, not the other authors. I mean, my readers tell me they read 100 to 200 books a year. Well, even if they read everything I've ever written, even if they read it twice, they still have plenty of room to read other authors. So that's something to get out of your head. Your real threat is that people just can't find you in the sheer pile of stuff there is to sort through. And so how do you make yourself visible, make your books visible? How do you get people to know you're there? And so there are a number of different ways to come at it. In a normal year, when we travel and can go anywhere we want, I usually do about 14 conventions a year in person. Now, obviously, that hasn't been happening. But last year, even with all of the current unpleasantness, I was still a guest on probably about 8 virtual conventions. What does that do? Well, when I'm on panels, when I'm talking about topics, when I'm doing a podcast like this, if you didn't know about me before, you at least now maybe have the curiosity to go, oh, I'll look her up on Amazon. I liked what she said. She was kind of interesting. Let's go see what she does. Oh, she said she wrote this kind of thing. I kind of like that. And you know, that is part of why we do this. Not only are we interested in the topic and do we want to share and hang out with our friends and do this kind of stuff because it's fun, but there's also the recognition, the reminder. Maybe you read one of my books 4 years ago and just haven't kept up and you go, oh, I wonder if she's got anything new. So just because you saw me here today or on all those other virtual panels, I know that people have said, oh, I'd never heard of your books before, but I heard you talk on XYZ and went and looked you up and I bought this. Great. That's wonderful. That helps me as an author. And now for that moment, I was above the clutter and the noise and you found me. That's the kind of discoverability we're talking about. And it happens in a lot of ways. It happens by participating in, by having a Facebook presence and a Twitter presence and maybe an Instagram presence. And if you are comfortable with video, maybe a YouTube presence, where people who find your books and want to know more about you or want to feel like they're interacting with you as a person can get more of that. I have a Facebook group for my Morgan stuff, and Larry and I, who frequently co-author, we co-author everything. It's just sometimes we put both names on things and sometimes we don't, have a reader group. And then I run a couple of other groups, including Continual, which is an online ongoing convention that never ends. So we co-author some series, and the reality is that behind the scenes, we work together on everything. So the key there is I'm easy to find. And one thing that a lot of authors don't realize is that nowadays readers want to have an experience with the author as a person, not just by the book. They want to be able to, okay, we can't really do book signings at bookstores, and bookstores have largely gone away anyhow, but the modern equivalent of that is tuning into somebody's Facebook group for their book series and being able to see what that author posts and being able to ask questions and being able to say, hey, I really like this book, but you said this and I wondered about that, and being able to get those answers. And so making yourself available in those places is largely a free thing. It takes time, but not money. And it takes consistency, because you can't just start a group and then never show up. I'm out in my groups every day. But that is a key thing that everybody can do to be more visible. And that is a great way to maintain a warm relationship with readers, whether they've read one of your books or 20 of your books. Now you have a way that they've given you permission to say, hey, I have a new book coming up, and they stand a good chance of finding it out.